You just type that?
I did 8 layers for mine, which was like, okay, I think this is the bare minimum, like,
Yeah,
would be good.
yeah.
I wanna go back and add more now to what we did today, but at the same time, there were no cemeteries around mine, so.
Lauren, are you recording or is it saving to this computer?
That's a really good question. I have no idea which one it will be. Did it start recording when I joined or before?
Yeah, it started when you joined.
It's gonna probably
And
record.
it's not giving me any recording options, so I would assume it's gonna save to your computer then.
Which is fine. I can access the YouTube from mine
That is.
and upload it.
Oh. There you go.
But I'm like, should I even be making layers or am I just supposed to like, you know?
It's like, I don't think they have to be as in depth as we have to be for
The actual one.
yeah. Cause for the actual one, that's where he wants the, like, the portfolio stuff like we're doing.
Mhm. Yes. Putting a bunch of layers on a map.
That's exactly what I did, and I just kind of went around my county and was looking like,
And I'm just testing. it out.
Cause you don't need to.
but it's almost all farmland except for 4 towns. I'm like, look at this, like, I can do almost anywhere, I don't mind taking over farmland.
I have to do like I have to do them in the northeast corner of mine, cause like the entire southwest. Half is mountains.
Fair enough, I don't think you know it. I mean, it'd be fun, maybe,
Yeah, thank you. Which one is that? 1, 2, or 3?
Oh, I don't know.
I
2,
think it's 2. If you hit 2,
There we go.
do it.
That's a bit far. I just want it to be just, even though it's just gonna see the back of everybody's heads and the sides kind of. Since it doesn't, we don't have anyone gonna be standing up front, I kind of just would rather he see you guys than a board with him on it. If that makes any sense. Oh, shut up then.
damn. That hurts.
What are you?
You okay?
It's a chair.
Break my shivering, but.
Jesus Christ. What? He's like this, he's like. Put it.
You're scared of such men.
Put it. I'm never gonna back your stuff. Joey, are you graduating in the spring? I forget.
So,
The summer. I'm graduating in 4 years, so maybe. I think I will.
fair enough.
For math, I just need to know math. Math's the B word.
Oh, yeah, no, it's recording, we can't say that word. YouTube will demonetize the channel.
No, not. Really? I swear it won't.
Really
Why?
strict on it.
I swear it won't.
I think it's only if it's within like 30 seconds that you can't say something like that. But 30 seconds.
Well, it's been over 30 seconds.
We're really,
Who watches these?
me?
Do you? What?
No.
Why is it?
Why? It's fun.
Simple.
My nails fell off.
Compound. Deeply dissected lobes.
Oh my god, what is that?
There, my nails fell off. My thumbnail fell off and then my pinky one fell off. And then I was like, well, let's take them all off because I have my retainers in. So I was trying to pry them out with nails on. And then my pinky fell off and I'm like, well, I look stupid now. I could deal with a thumb, maybe another finger. But I was like, okay, what if they go? Kind of hurt, but. Yeah. We need another sleepover. We need one that I can actually go to. Because I've been comfortable. I can't do this weekend because I'm already having one of the 3, possibly 4 people.
Cause was the last, when were you guys were doing the Just Dance stuff on the Snapchat?
Yeah.
group chat?
Yeah.
I was like looking through that and my friend heard over this for like your Wheeze lab and he thought I died or something.
I was thinking like a Friday though,
We could do a Friday.
cause I don't know I don't know if my cousin, cause she's like, I want you to come to church with us every Sunday, and I was like, yeah, but like, I was thinking like, what if I'm trying to stay with my friends,
Yeah.
and if I'm like,
Not a lot.
yeah, cause like, I don't want her to be like, well, then I'll just pick you up from the apartment if I'm like
Yeah.
sick or something.
We can do it Friday. Mhm.
Donated by Tito's.
Hi, Tito.
No, like Tito's, the vodka.
Oh.
Like actual, that's their,
It is.
Donated by Tito's?
yeah, love Tito's.
What is, them?
For hands and surface sanitation.
It's got a certain amount of alcohol, so it might be drinkable.
80%, do not drink, 80% antiseptic
Oh, they
alcohol.
just.
God, I'm pretty sure the most I've ever had was 40-something%.
What about Everclear?
I've not had that.
Have you ever heard of it?
Well, yeah, I've heard of it. Can you not buy that here?
It's, you have to, I think within certain states, you have to have, it's only allowed within certain states, and those certain states, you have to have a special license in order to sell it. It's banned in just the other states.
I know my cousin, when he went to
Advantage
school, he would go to another state to buy it.
That's great.
Where they didn't
Why
have a
would you
restriction,
Buy Everclear.
cause he would drink it.
Please tell me you mix it with something.
Well, yeah,
Like, I was gonna say, if you drank it straight, that's just,
no,
man.
to be fair, he was a big dude, so like, he's
Drinking
Florence.
or not ethanol. If you're drinking straight ethanol, you got bigger problems.
I did take just a straight shot of tequila over the weekend. Vodka.
How'd you like it?
Oh, yeah, vodka, sorry. It was good.
I like tequila, I hate vodka.
I want some tequila right now.
Now, Nick.
You're not.
Actually, yesterday,
You wanted it yesterday?
because I was laughing at politicians from the election.
Being
That's
laughing
what
now.
spent my night. I got Domino's and I just watched the country burn.
Oh, it's burning.
No, I rallied like a champ this weekend. Went out 2 nights in a row and went crazy both nights. Yes.
Yeah.
It's going to happen again this weekend when my friends are down here.
Just one night.
Just one night though.
Only one.
Don't forget to terrorize the local Wendy's workers.
Honestly,
No.
I'm not gonna terrorize
I
them.
can do this the other day for dinner. So I was hungry for donuts.
What'd you get, did you just have donuts or dinner?
Yeah, because I was hungry for breakfast, but all of the buses were coming in and out of the bus lanes, and I was like, I don't wanna do that. So I DoorDashed at like 7 o'clock at night, and then the DoorDash guy, he went to the parking lot, like the Washington parking lot, and he texted me, he's like, okay, I'm here, where are you? I was like, I'm at the bus stop, where's what you need, where are you? He's like, you're not in Coraline? I'm like, no, I'm in Washington. He's like, oh yeah, it says Washington, I'll be right there. I'm like, oh my God.
Why?
I put it on the instructions.
Someone told me they don't read those.
Some of them don't, but my
So-
first one did. She was really nice.
Maybe I'm just gonna, no, because I want Lauren to hear anything goofy we say. I'm just gonna say, I'm gonna mute it just in case and we're just saying something stupid, but.
Always so
We're gonna lose it out, that's all.
First showing. Cause we don't know what to say ever.
Oh, I have you on this one.
Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh.
Of course.
Lauren, you missed it. Come on, step closer, step a little bit
I'm
closer.
amazed
I
they
need you to come just
actually
a little
showed
bit
up.
closer.
That's crazy.
Lauren's on a Zoom meeting.
Are you actually kidding me?
I have a
Should do that.
migraine. I can't control that, Diego.
I have leg pain. I should be.
You have no excuses. You guys never
This one,
show
that
up.
one.
Up there.
I'm stop right. That's crazy. Okay.
You guys
well,
never show up. How was I supposed to know the one day I get sick you would?
Hi, Eric, how you doing?
Great, how about y'all?
Doing all right.
Good.
Are you two gonna just awkwardly stand in the corner? Are you gonna actually sit in a desk?
Yeah, sit right there. Papa squat. Are you gonna say something or just stare at him?
No.
This is really awkward now, and I'm not even there.
Was it me?
Hi,
buddy. How's it going?
Girl, your parents kept warmer than I am.
No exam.
Okay.
No exam. Yeah, everyone gets an A.
Where did they go today?
Yeah, you don't want to sit over there.
No.
Not over there.
There?
Mid-work, it's okay.
If I can spend my body doing these steps, I think I know.
No way.
What?
No.
There's a reason.
Yeah, stay alone, soul. Lauren,
Yes, Diego.
where's my Cards Against Humanity and Uno?
On our
It's on our
kitchen
kitchen
table
table.
in your Walmart bag.
Up. Like.
That was really big.
I was trying to zoom in on him, but it won't go up
It's been a lot.
on Diego.
Gotta push it up.
There we go.
Sit in the middle of the floor.
How are you?
She's on the computer. She's got a headache. Well, migraine. This is worse than a headache. She's got a bad one. Really
Unfortunately,
bad
it is
headache.
worse than a headache.
I didn't mean to undermine your headache. I mean migraine. You're saying the wrong words. What?
Where'd the British come from?
The British are coming, the British are coming. You've got enough tea, we can throw it in the harbor.
I was gonna ask if I could have some of that tonight. Boy, I did not sleep well last night or the night before, or the night before that.
Is everyone
If you're talking about the
Yeah.
raspberry
Who got
tea,
sick this weekend?
So what?
Are you ill?
I saw that.
I need you to leave.
I leave tomorrow.
It feels like everyone got sick over the weekend. I was at home though.
You bought my ticket. What?
I didn't throw up.
I don't know, I was driving. Hangover for 2 days though.
Yeah.
What's
Hangover so bad, I thought I would actually.
The girl next to me was like, wait, what? I took a shot of vodka, like when I took my shot of vodka, I didn't have it in a chaser or anything, I just, so. I'm crazy.
That's crazy.
Crazy. Great, is there like an office in Sweden, like, that people can go to? Cause I've had 2 people come in at different times that are like, I'm supposed to be bringing this to the office. I'm like, what office? I don't know what you're talking
I
about.
have no idea. I'm sure it's on the map that they have, 'cause there is on it.
Lauren.
Hi, Lauren.
Hi, Lauren.
Well,
Why are you on Zoom in your car?
just an old picture of Lauren. Shouldn't be known now.
I was thinking about making.
Okay, good. The point side is basically like, oh.
I got it.
I was thinking about making some tea when we got back too. We can have a tea pie.
Tea party. I want mine cold.
Yeah, it's really good iced.
I don't like
Wait,
hot
you walk there.
drinks.
I want mine cold.
But we brew it hot, but I pour it over ice.
Yeah, that's fair.
I just don't like hot drinks.
Raspberry leaf. I got a comically gigantic bag of it. You wanna see?
What do you mean by comically gigantic?
Comically gigantic.
When did I get it?
Oh, like last week.
Okay.
Or like a single bag.
Yeah.
It's just one tea bag.
Oh,
On
how much did that cost you? How much did that cost you?
Like 20 bucks.
top of the fridge.
It's 2 pounds.
Never seen it.
2 leaves.
It's on top of the fridge.
It's on- It's on top of the fridge. I don't know, man.
I'm blind without.
No, not when she was here, because she just said she hadn't seen it, and it was.
No, I was not.
Yeah, the whole time.
It's really good though. Really good.
Apparently, it's supposed to shut your brain off or something. I don't know.
It quiets your mind. But when you're tired.
That's fine.
Yeah, you can stop.
What'd you got things in on?
Anymore.
Way past me.
I feel like I should.
Alright, I'm done.
For 2 days, and I'm pretty sure I bombed it in a good way.
I almost failed high school sometimes.
Say,
I almost failed high school. Sucks. She likes it, alright.
Well, I'm interested in you and mine, because my minor is criminal justice. That's cool. Anyway.
Can you hear us okay?
I can hear you guys. Can you hear me? Can you hear
Yes,
me?
we can.
Okay.
Perfect. All right, well, we can go ahead and get started just a couple minutes early. So today we have a presentation from Kenny Podrazik. I hope I pronounced that correctly. And he's gonna tell us a little bit about what he does. So I'll let him go ahead and take the floor.
All right. I'm going to share my screen here. Let's get that working. All right. Well, thanks for the invitation. I appreciate that. The presentation I did was back in Des Moines. Was that last year, 2023? The years have been running together for me. Anyways, I'm an aviation meteorologist with the National Weather Service in Kansas City. If you're not familiar with the CWSUs, I'll get into a little bit of that. But I've been with the Weather Service since 2005, so I'm kind of dating myself there. But I graduated from Mizzou, so go Mizzou. Went to Weatherbank for about 3 years. So that's a private company. They actually sold out to, I think, Meteorologics or Weather Data. No, one that's in Minneapolis, I think it was. So they sold out most of their data. I don't think they do a whole lot much more. But when I was working there, did a lot of energy and transportation forecasting. So that was, and then even some material forecasting. So for like, I think Baskin Robbins and Lowe's were some of our clients, which is quite interesting. So, and the reason why they want data for like Baskin Robbins, they're going to be a huge heat wave next week. They could stock up on ice cream in certain parts of the country, that kind of thing. So, and then I got into, once I hit that 3-year mark for experience at Weatherbank, I started making panels for the Weather Service. So I got in at the Williston, North Dakota. That's formerly a Weather Service office, so it's a little bit different from your WFO, if you're familiar with those. But there was only 5 of us up there, and we only had 5 counties. But it was kind of a subset of Bismarck. That office is closed now. I think it's closed about 5 or 6 years. And the reason why it was open, it was just, I think a senator kept finding money to fund it, to keep it open. But long ago, in early 90s, the Weather Service had all these small satellite offices, and Williston was one of the last remaining ones in the lower 48. You go up in Alaska, there's a bunch of them up there, like Barrow and well, there's all kinds of, small offices up there. And then I went to Des Moines for several years, 15 years or so. I finished off there. My last day was maybe a couple weeks after that huge trade show in December of 2021. So I started here January 2nd or 3rd of 2022, and I've been here since. And those are some of my favorite teams, I guess, Mizzou and Cardinals, and go Chiefs. I went to that game on Sunday night or Monday night. That was quite an excellent game to go to. So some of you might not be familiar. I don't know as far as anybody wanting to get into the Weather Service. Some folks don't actually know that we're actually under the Department of Commerce. Weather definitely impacts commerce. Doesn't matter what it is, whether it's fire weather, winter weather, hurricanes, and then we fall underneath the NOAA. And this guy here, Ken Grant, he's our NWS director. He's been there for about almost 2 years, and he's fantastic. He's probably one of my favorite directors that we've had. Some other NOAA line offices. So the Weather Service is actually probably the biggest, the largest agency within NOAA. There's all these other little line offices that we do. Excuse me, let me silence my phone here. Sorry about that. The biggest one here, other biggest one is the Office of Marine and Aviation Operations. So that's where the hurricane hunters, which you see here, that's where they're parked under. And so there's Kermit and Miss Piggy. That's the bigger one here. You see in the background there. But they also do flights, research for like snowpack and things like that. Not just flying the hurricanes as well. So. And then NESIS is a huge deal with the satellite and data. That's a huge part of what, at least what we do here at ZKC. And then, utilizing satellite data is phenomenal for weather. So a little bit of breakdown there of the Weather Service. Obviously, we have Aviation Weather Center here in Kansas City. And then we're right now, we're not the CWSUs, the Center Weather Service units. There's 21 of those. Scattered throughout the entire CONUS. The NAS is what it's called, the National Airspace System. And then also in Kansas City, we have the training center. There's the operations proving ground. There's the Central Region headquarters. So there's quite a bit of NWS weather entities within this the metro area. There's also Pleasant Hill, and also Topeka's not too far. Actually, where I live in Spring Hill, Kansas, I'm actually closer to the Topeka office than the Kansas City weather forecast office. And you can see some of these other ones. There's also the River Forecast Centers down in Pleasant Hill, Missouri. And then there's, obviously you guys are probably familiar with the SPC Space Weather Centers out in Boulder. And then there's a bunch of stuff out in Silver Springs, Maryland. So a little breakdown of the WFO, the weather forecast offices. So every county in the United States is covered by one of these. This is where you obviously get your blizzard warnings, your tornado warnings. I issued my share of severe thunderstorm warnings, tornado warnings. And if you remember that August 2020, the rate show, I started my shift on that day of 7 a.m. And so that was probably one of the busiest days I've ever worked within the Weather Service, just wall-to-wall chats and phone calls and things like that. And then there are RFCs. I think that, yeah, there we go. The Missouri Basin is probably the biggest river basin there. So that covers a good chunk of the upper part of Missouri all the way to St. Louis till it goes into the Mississippi there. And then this is where we lie. And so those two, the rivers, the RFCs and WFOs, they cover basically all the weather that's going to hit the ground. We cover what's going on up in the air. So there's 4 of us meteorologists on station. There's 1 MIC, 3 operational METs. So I'm one of the operational METs. There's 21 of these centers, weather service units, and we're actually parked within the air route traffic control centers, and those are run by the FAA. And so, after this presentation, next time you fly, you'll probably have a little bit different perspective on, what goes on up in the airspace and how much weather impacts air traffic. It's actually pretty phenomenal. So, as far as how the breakdown of the FAA and the controller system, we're the en route. We're actually in it called the en route system. So that's basically, you're en route to a certain destination. And this part of the country, we're typically flyover country, but we get tons of traffic. So I'll get into that in a little bit. And then TRACONs cover your approach, on the way to certain terminals or airports. So like MCI TRACON, they cover, I think there's about 6 airports within their airspace. And then you get to the tower, you're probably familiar with those. So there's some towers that are a lot busier than others. If you go up to down to Atlanta or Chicago, you're going to get extremely busy, but you'll have towers that, are around, like downtown here, Kansas City, it's not too busy. So weather impacts on aviation. This is based on your core 30 airports by delay. So type of delay. So your weather is obviously going to be causing over 50% of your delays. And I'm sure maybe some of you have been delayed by weather. And some of these other ones, it's increased a little bit there with volume over the past couple of years. And I think some of that's just a little bit more uptick after the COVID situation there. But certainly weather is always going to be a big impact. And that's where we come in. Back in the late 70s, there was a crash en route to Atlanta. It actually 63 fatalities, unfortunately, 22 amazingly survived. But the airplane flew into a thunderstorm, had hail ingested into the engines, and it flamed out. And so the NTSB investigation suggested that the air traffic controllers needed a better way to receive timely weather information. So that's where we come in handy, and that's where we're basically embedded within the FAA, and they're constantly at our desk asking questions on what's going to happen. So we do provide tailored forecasts to our facilities, and I'll get to where the yellow outline there. That's our airspace. We cover much of Kansas, Missouri, southern Illinois, and pretty much northern portions of Oklahoma. And this is one of our in-house forecast briefings. So we'll draw in thunderstorms. That's one of the biggest things during the convective season. Turbulence is pretty much year-round. And there's clear air turbulence, and there's also turbulence related to convection, things like that. There's also icing, which is extremely dangerous to aircraft. And then, this time of year, we're starting to get more like IFR and VFR conditions, stratus. I think you guys are under a nice little stratus deck over there in Illinois. So, and then precipitation, sometimes we do have some issues with smoke, and volcanic ash is extremely dangerous to aircraft. And then also dust. Sometimes we get some dust storms out in western Kansas. But anyways, as far as that goes, a lot of the rerouting of aircraft around the hazard is based on our forecast. So, so if you get delayed or rerouted, that might be because of us. So I apologize ahead of time. So, who does get our briefings? So we have a multitude. There's about 400 folks within one of these air route traffic control centers. The ATM, he's the air traffic manager. He basically runs the entire building. Other than the OMICs, they're the operation manager. They're the folks that actually are in charge of all the operations that goes on within on the floor. We're for the controllers and the equipment, traffic management, and things like that. But pretty much our biggest customer besides the OMIC is the TMO and the STMCs that work traffic management. We work very closely with them, provide them with weather data on a consistent basis. We have 2 briefings scheduled per day. We also have 2 stand-ups for the entire facility for different supervisors and area managers and things like that. We also provide a pre-duty weather briefing, which is for all the controllers that are required before they start shift to view that, and that's typically about 90 to maybe 2 minutes long. Every now and again, you can get pretty windy with weather, get up to about 3 minutes. We try and keep it less than 2 minutes though. But those we provide those at least 3 times a day. Sometimes maybe occasionally we'll get updated as needed if weather changes pretty quickly. So, but it can get pretty busy, especially in convective season when we're got thunderstorms all over the place. So some of the busiest airports, this is based on call rate. So this is kind of your hourly capacity for those airports. Atlanta is extremely busy, actually is the busiest airport in the world. And this is it on the right there at Hartsfield, Jackson. Excuse me. But the ones outlined here, Memphis, Minneapolis, Denver, Dallas, Chicago, those are all top 10 airports. And the reason why I put those on there, those are all surrounded by all the departures and arrivals typically go through our airspace. So if we're having thunderstorms in Nebraska or like Arkansas or maybe eastern Iowa, things like that, where depending on where the thunderstorms are set up, we could get a little bit more of an uptick in traffic. We got approaches to Chicago. Denver is extremely just problematic, especially during this summertime convective season. If you've ever been to Denver and Colorado and whatnot, you get the afternoon convection going. And whoever thought about putting a major airport on the front range of a huge mountain range, I don't know. Yeah, but it gets problematic. But a lot of times we'll get some holdings there in western Kansas, and I do have some videos. I don't think I have it in this presentation where it's just people holding over haze and Salina and things like that. So, but we typically don't worry about actually weather going within our airspace. I mean, we do. We're more concerned about weather outside of airspace because that pushes air traffic into ours. So, like I mentioned, if there's thunderstorms in Iowa and Nebraska, that's going to push traffic further south, and vice versa down in like Arkansas and northern Texas, things like that. So a little bit more of a breakdown here of the different sectors. And if you're thinking about being a controller, I mean, go for it. They're always looking for controllers. It's an extremely challenging but rewarding. Kind of, hindsight's 2020. Go back, I might have considered it. I just didn't know much about it. But working in it, it's pretty cool to see all the things they do. But all the controllers that they get paid on how much they know, like, because there's various sectors, and each sector is broken up. So here, the thick line is high altitude, so that's above 24,000, and they call it super high, which is above 37,000 feet. It's the same as the high altitude, and you get the low altitude, which is below 23,000 feet. You can see the sector is a little bit different. So when we're forecasting and providing weather information, we have to kind of keep that in mind. You can see Ozark, their high altitude has 3 of the low altitudes within their airspace of the high altitude. So it's kind of you gotta. I'm still learning. Prairie's probably the easiest one. That's kind of nicknamed Thunderdome. You can probably imagine why. There's always thunderstorms out there. So we do provide what we call an assist. This is aid to a controller or like an area supervisor. This was typically when like a general aviation pilot's caught in an icing situation or even IFR, NVFR situation. If you're not familiar with that, some pilots, are rated to fly in IFR conditions. They call it the soup, if you're not familiar with that, but some are not. Like you are not supposed to fly into those that conditions. Sometimes it's unavoidable, like maybe they have a bad weather briefing or something like that. I don't know. Sometimes they get caught in a situation that's can be turning into a serious situation pretty quickly. So a lot of times in the wintertime we'll get this situation. We'll get maybe 1 or 2 a month during the wintertime. And we'll look for holes and breaks in the cloud deck, or maybe look for the nearest VFR airport. We had a pilot, she was flying in an icing situation. She ended up having about a half inch of ice on her entire plane, so wings and on her top, and the only thing that didn't ice up was her actual propeller. It was a small plane, and I calculated after she landed safely, thankfully, it added about an extra 400 pounds, just that ice onto that small aircraft. So that's a significant impact. So she was lucky that she had a heated propeller. So here's an example of an assist. This was from last October. This is an example of a pilot that was VFR rated, but there was IFR, MVFR ceilings all over the place. So this is down he was trying to get into Branson, Missouri. This is southern Missouri. So that lake there is Table Rock. You're familiar with southern Missouri. So you can see he's trying to get in, trying again, just holding, hopefully, and then he tries to go down. Branson has two actually airports, so he tries to get into the one in the furthest south. And it's pretty fascinating that he continues to go into northern Arkansas. And I directed him to the nearest airport that had VFR conditions was further north and east of this current location, but he was afraid that he didn't have enough fuel, and so at this time he actually turned off his transponder because he thought that would save fuel. But a happy ending on that story. He ended up going back to that second airport in southern Branson, and they had emergency vehicles, firefighters and police that lit up the runway, and he was able to land safely. So that's one of the situations where that could have turned out a lot worse than what it did. So icing, how does it impact aircraft? Well, the lift, it decreases the lift, it increases the weight. Like I mentioned, that half-inch of ice had about 400 pounds to it. The thrust is decreased, and your drag, you have that a lot more drag on it, so is increased. So this is probably a better graphic as far as what icing does to you. So it's extremely dangerous, and so that's why you're flying in the winter. You have to probably wait a little bit to get go through the de-icer. You definitely want that to occur. So in intensities, we look for PIREPs, and I'll get into PIREPs here in just a minute. We want any kind of icing PIREPs, trace amounts all the way up to severe amounts. That's because you don't know. Like if a trace, you get a little bit of perceptible, no significant accumulation, but that could turn in a serious situation, further into the flight. So, and I'll just skip that there. So turbulence, intensity classification. So again, turbulence is pretty prevalent throughout the entire year. I mean, you do get icing at times throughout the year, but the icing, as far as stratiform related to that, that's more in the fall, winter, and early spring. In turbulence, though, you get light, and a lot of this is kind of subjective too. It depends on the aircraft. You can get this big 777. It might be just experiencing light turbulence where you get a smaller, Cessna. It may be more like moderate or severe turbulence. So depending on the aircraft, and also depends on who's on the plane and the pilot too as well, reporting it. But we like the data no matter what. And so as far as pilot reports, they want to get location, time, and altitude, flight level, and any kind of aircraft. The aircraft type obviously helps. So there's an example here on the right of some various turbulence and icing, and then the blue ones with the slashes nil reports. So there's some nil turbulence reports, and then I don't know if there's any nil icing reports, but the nil reports are fantastic because we're forecasting for like turbulence or icing, and we get a negative report within that area we're thinking. That helps us kind of fine tune our forecast. So I don't know. This was just a really busy, bumpy day. You could see several of the mod severe reports down here in southern Kansas and in northern Oklahoma there. And then the others that could be just a report a ceiling or whatever, maybe a thunderstorm or something like that. So here's an example from a couple of years ago, a dying MCS in the morning. You can see those nice rumble strips over northern Kansas and northern Missouri. And at this time, we didn't have anything out. Even the Aviation Weather Center typically will have some sort of SIGMET out, which is kind of a warning for convection or turbulence or icing. And on the image to the right, that was what was out. That was a convective SIGMET over the thunderstorm activity. But we got a couple of reports of from some 767s at flight level 370. That's what that FL 370 is. So that's 37,000 feet. So this anvil was up there at about 37,000 feet, and they were getting moderate to severe turbulence going through that. So that was a big impact. So we have one product that we issue here at the CWSUs. That's the Center Weather Advisory. So we can issue this for, in this case, it was moderate to severe turbulence. We can also issue these for convection, developing. The thing with that Aviation Weather Center, they issue theirs at the top of the hour. So if we have thunderstorms going at 20 after, we'll issue something, just to kind of cover the gap until they get, and we'll coordinate with them to issue one of those at the top of the hour. So in this scenario, they ended up issuing a SIGMET in the next hour at 13 Zulu to cover that moderate severe turbulence. So we do have TAFs and METAR. TAFs, we have about 40 of them in our airspace. We do coordinate with local WFO at Kansas City and St. Louis to kind of help provide our input for their TAFs, basically MCI in St. Louis, because we do provide support for those TRACONs. The one in St. Louis is called T75 TRACON, and then and MCI is obviously MCI TRACON, but we'll provide them with as far as a wind shift and or thunderstorms approaching. And then there's obviously tons of METARs within our airspace, which is very helpful. Weather balloons, we occasionally get reports from pilots of a weather balloon. So y'all are probably familiar with those, what's all in the radio sounds and whatnot. And they get up to about 100,000 feet. This takes, I don't know, about 5 to 10 minutes to blow up. They get up to about, they expand pretty big. I believe it was 25 feet in diameter. So once they do, they blow up and then they fall back down 5 feet diameter, excuse me. But up in the atmosphere, they expand a little bit higher. Excuse me, a drink here. So most of the time, we'll get the reports in the 30,000 feet to 40,000 feet range of those balloons. We've never had a plane hit one, thankfully, knock on wood. If you ever, want to learn something, look up big sky theory. That just basically means that the airspace is big enough to where, we don't need air traffic controllers, but, that's a different ballgame. I'll go into that some other time. If you're familiar with the 8ADs, that's kind of our heartbeat of the Weather Service. You've got about 160 of these covering CONUS and Alaska, and these even Puerto Rico and Hawaii has one that puts out a ton of wattage. And most of them are up to 90 feet, depending on the location. This one here is in Des Moines. They were doing their update. They call it a SLEP update. It was they were replacing the pedestal with inside. That's the thing here inside to extend the life of these for another 30 years. This is technically 1988 technology. Most of them were deployed and built and finished in the early 90s. So they just did a whole refurbishing throughout the entire National Weather Service. And they're starting to finish up. I think St. Louis was one of the last ones. But, if you ever get a chance, I don't know what you guys have taken with as far as radar meteorology, but, you can detect tons of stuff on this, on the radars. And, it's like the big soccer ball there with, what's his name? Billy? I can't remember his name. Anyways, our coverage here is, pretty good east of the Rockies, except in northeast Missouri. So if you live in Kirksville, it's too bad. You get the lowest beam there is around 10,000 feet. Same with southeast Missouri. Obviously, further west you go, you get the mountain ranges blocking the beams and causing some low coverage there. And where you see the white is, it's probably not a whole lot of population. So turbines this is a screen capture from 2015. And the reason I threw this in here is they cause ground clutter and false returns on the controller scope. So they use those 88D returns, put it on their scopes to kind of help them guide the air traffic around the thunderstorms. So this is 2015, and then compared to 2022, you can see the amount of wind turbines just exploded within that 7 years, and I'm sure it's even more just within 2 years ago. It's great to have that stuff, but it causes a huge impact as far as weather and radar interrogation. So satellite imagery goes and pose. Your polar orbiting versus geostationary. We use them both. The polar ones are getting more and more prevalent, I guess. There's more getting launched all the time. But there's, NOAA has a bunch flying around, and France has even a few. So NASA has got a bunch, and then, you got the, the ones we don't know about, the Defense Department, the ones that are spying on you probably. So, what does it what does this give you? It gives you visible, infrared, water vapor. There's basically three products, and then those products are kind of derived into various other ones. But we can look at precipitation, lightning data. Lightning data is getting much better over the past several years, and even looking at sea surface temperatures, volcanic eruptions, a lot of times vegetation too, as far as burn scars, even drought. You can see on that. There's also you can pick out. There's depending on the hailstorm, you can see a hail swath, on a clear day, kind of thing. So. 1 minute data is fantastic. You get those two mesosectors. This is one from a couple of years ago. You could pick out where the line of thunderstorms is going to get going. The amount of it's just the lead time increases so much with the 1 minute lead time. Excuse me, the 1 minute data. Just as far as where storm initiation. So, and if you're expecting severe weather that day, or sometimes you get these thunderstorms getting going a little bit sooner than anticipated. You can brief your partners, that kind of thing. So I use satellite pretty much every day in the of my operation. So in the FAA concerns, they're wanting to know about timing of these thunderstorms. So not just when they are initiating, but also when are they going to end. So if they're going to impact any kind of major fixes. So if we're having thunderstorms impacting, Chicago, Denver, Dallas, that kind of thing, they want to know about it. Coverage wise is going to be a big old line of thunderstorms, or just widely scattered, just isolated. Your echo tops, sometimes you get the low tops that maybe the aircraft can fly over it. Typically, anything above 30,000 feet, it probably won't fly over it unless it's cargo plane. The joke is that boxes don't complain. So the FedEx and UPS, I've seen them fly through all kinds of stuff. So if you ever seen Castaway, you probably understand why. So and then evolution too, where it's going to go is going to start breaking up. It's going to fill in. So all this stuff, they take into an account. The traffic management unit does, and so they try to figure out where they're going to put air traffic throughout the day. And so that's where the TCF comes in handy. This is an acronym within the acronym. So Traffic Flow Management Convective Forecast. It's technically an Aviation Weather Center product, but they do coordinate with all the CWSUs, even the airlines that have a meteorology center, and then the FAA command center. There's 6 or 7 NAMs, they call them, the National Aviation Meteorologists. So they're out at the FAA Command Center in Warrenton, Virginia. I was out there in April. It's a pretty cool place. But they have basically 51%, of the say of what goes into the product. But excuse me, but it's a 4, 6, and 8 hour forecast, and we coordinate this. It's updated every 2 hours, and we look for coverage, height, and confidence level. So the legend on the left there, that's what we kind of live. You've got sparse, medium, and then you get a solid purple line. And this is an actual image from back in May of this year. So you can see there's a little bit of medium coverage, might have been a little bit further to north, and it was the 8 hour forecast. So if we're thinking it's we can adjust it before the this next the 6 hour, the 4 hour. So the FAA uses this to make decisions on where they're going to put air traffic throughout the year. So right now in this scenario, they're going to put most of the traffic through Oklahoma because they're not expecting any thunderstorms. This is your 8 hour forecast for thunderstorms. So in northern Texas and just down into like south of Wichita. So right now, 8 hours before that, okay, we're going to plan to put all the departures from Dallas all the way to Denver. That's going to go through Oklahoma. So in the FAA and the controllers, they need a plan for that, for staffing, things like that, if they need to bring in extra folks and all that. So it's a pretty complicated, and every day is a different day. So here's another example from April 30th. This is your 8 hour forecast. So this is valid at 21 Zulu. And then 2 hours later at 23 Zulu, you can see it just blew up. And it's actually pretty similar to that previous image. But again, they're going to probably put air traffic through Oklahoma since we don't have any coverage of the forecast in that area, if that makes sense. So, but obviously there is some down there. So that's where you get the deviations and and things like that. We try to avoid that as much as possible. So, and here's that example of April 30th. This is your radar image. So this is 5-minute intervals. And it starts at about 3 in the afternoon, goes to 10 p.m. So when we're doing our forecast and briefings, we do our best to provide the evolution on where that line of thunderstorms is going to end up. So that's where we try and pinpoint the sparse and medium coverages and maybe even a line of thunderstorms. And then PDARS data, if you're familiar, you may have seen some of this before. This is where, let me pause this for a second and increase the playback speed. So it just goes a lot better. So this was at, it starts at about 21Z, and this is 1 minute data. And all these aircraft are about 22,000 feet. So you can see there's no, and basically we get all the transcons. So basically anything from the East Coast going to the West Coast is probably going through our airspace. And so in this day, there was pretty much the only hole. And it starts to break up in northern Missouri. We get a little bit of deviations going up in there. But, there's certain numbers within each airspace that's broken down that, you don't want to go over that number. So say it's like 20, that means there's 20 aircraft that is a recommendation where that it should not go over, exceed that for 15 minutes. Otherwise you get, potential there for separation issues, which, the aircraft controllers are required to have certain separation limits. I think it's a mile between each other and 3,000 feet, in altitude. So it's a safety issue. So, when you got aircraft going at 400 or 500 miles per hour, things can happen pretty quickly. So let's see, that started over here. All right, so PDARS data is your performance data analysis and reporting system, and this is your is from the FAA, but I think NASA has a little bit to do with it, but it's continuing to improve. It collects data, flight data and radar track data across the entire NAS. So I've seen some really cool ones that along the East Coast and going in and out of, Jacksonville. Going in, by the way, if you're going and flying to Florida during the summertime, good luck, because it's there's airspace that's restricted on each side of, the Atlantic and then the Gulf. And then if you have thunderstorms getting through there, it's, Miami's busy, Tampa's busy. You're likely going to get delayed. So this is just an example of PDAR's data for the AFC Championship game from a couple of years ago. This is when the Chiefs played the Bengals. And this is the cyan or blue, whatever color that is. That's your MCI TRACON. So they're in charge of all the air traffic going in and out of on the approach to all these airports. So MCI, MKC, Lee Summit, and then there's Gardner, and then Olathe, or Johnson County Executive. No, sorry. But this day they were kind of didn't expect this much air traffic. So the red is going into downtown MKC. And then I think there was a green that goes to like OJC. But in this day, the actual smaller airport downtown was way busier than MCI, your international airport. And this is by the way, this is pre Taylor Swift, so she wasn't in this one. And that's a serious thing that gets breached, by the way, a lot of times if there's a Chiefs game, when's Taylor Swift playing it in. So, all right. So another example of case study here from April 12th from 2022. I may have had this in my briefing up in Des Moines, but it's a good example though. This is another example of where to put all the air traffic. You get this big line developing from southern Minnesota all the way down to south central Kansas, and then you got convection over here in Arkansas that's just kind of hanging out. So the only way to get through that's this little funnel effect. And here's another example of that PDAR's data. And sorry, this is just dots, not the pretty. I might be too fast here. Let's go back here. So this blue here, that's the thunderstorm forecast. I believe this is the 6 hour for each one of those time frames. So it's kind of stepping on an anthill, getting these aircraft just diverting around it. So in this scenario, it kind of developed a little bit sooner than the forecast. And so, there was playbooks or, the air traffic they planned to go across northern Kansas, but this thing developed a little bit sooner, so they had to divert everything around south of it. So one of my favorite ones is look out here near Salina when that first develops. There's this little aircraft that's like, I guess he's holding to try and get into Salina. You'll see it. It just does this little twirly. Here it is, that yellow one. No, it's the red one right there. Woo, woo, woo. And he made that sound too. So, all right. So from last April now, this is kind of I call this one shooting a gap. This was a thunderstorm activity down here in Oklahoma City. There was actually a big tornado and a bunch of hail with this. This was under forecast, at least with the TCF. We had this big cluster of thunderstorms here in northern Kansas. And so we had a lot of traffic, coming through this way and coming through Oklahoma. And I measured this little gap here was about 20 miles apart. And so, I had to put a ton of aircraft through there. We'll start with the smaller version one. And so this little blue here, that's the high altitude airspace. This is one of the airspaces in southeast Kansas there. And you can see when it develops, it gets extremely busy. And that stuff down in Oklahoma, that's what really pushed everything into it. So it's pushing everything northwards, and then you have stuff going pushed in south. It just gets extremely complicated for that controller to keep separation, keep safety, and things like that. So, and it's pretty fascinating the amount of work they have to do to get these, then they're required to talk to all these aircraft at least twice. When they say hello, when they come into airspace, and then they say goodbye before they leave it, or if they're providing some other direction, if they have to take a right or left or whatever, they'll talk to them as well. But so as far as the one on the left here, this is just zoomed out, kind of gives you a better feel for how much air travels through our airspace, throughout the afternoon and evening hours. The one thing I didn't mention, peak air traffic is probably from 8 a.m. to about 8 p.m., during the daytime. And so that's typically when this is obviously your peak evening traffic is probably from 4 to 7. So this one shows you a little bit better, the shooting the gap there. And it finally opens up a little bit further down in northern Oklahoma, but everybody was already en route to that gap in southeast Kansas. So that's where they ended up. All right. So if you want to view more, I have tons more. We've got 20 of those on YouTube. You can view those. Just made this QR code, so it should work. If it doesn't, let me know. And if you want to know more about the impacts on thunderstorms, I got a little bit more detail on this story map here. So that's all I got. I don't know. I guess I didn't go far enough. You guys got any questions?
We do have a question. Go ahead, Andy. Speak up a little.
Yeah.
Maybe come over this way where the microphone is.
See me because that's the magic camera.
Uh-huh.
I gotta ask a real surface level question because I really do not know much about aviation. When you say like air traffic congestion, what exactly do you mean by that? Because when I think of like land congestion, right, it's cars on ground. They can't exactly, go through each other, or they have to go around. But for planes and stuff, like, just go over them, like you have 3 dimensions. I know this, I'm genuinely asking, like, what still allows congestion to happen when you have an entire another dimension to work with? Yeah, if you're familiar with, you can look on, just go on to FlightAware in the live map. That'll show you all the air traffic in the air at one time, or at that moment. It updates all the time. And at any one time throughout the whole NAS, there's about 5,000 or so aircraft in the air. And, typically it starts in the West Coast in the morning. So you got your New York, your Boston, your DC markets taking off. And on a clear day when there's high pressure all over the place, things typically can go smooth. You're not going to have any kind of deviations or playbooks. They call them plans around thunderstorms. But when you start to throw in thunderstorms in this scenario, like in some of these cases, that's where you get the more of the congestion. And there is like I mentioned, there's a requirement for the air traffic separation. I believe it's a 1 mile horizontally, and I believe it's 3,000 feet vertically. And so there's been some very close calls. There's a radio that is connected through all the air traffic, FAA systems, the towers and whatnot. And so you can hear some interesting information on what goes on up in the air in the NAS. People trying to get access to the cockpits, or we've heard one time, I think it was a 757. Anyways, it lost air cabin pressure, so they were at like 38,000 feet, and they had to get down to 10,000 feet really quick, and that came close to a military
aircraft that apparently wasn't known about. Sometimes the military does what they want. But it was flying through an airspace that was, I guess, restricted. So that was kind of the deal. But they, apparently both pilots could, see each other smile kind of thing. So yeah, there's some, it's pretty phenomenal. But yeah, the air traffic, like, when you have aircraft going at, like I said, like 500 miles per hour, the congestion like that gets pretty hairy at times. Um, so I don't know if that answers your question, but it's, it does, you can get 20 airplanes within a small airspace, and it's pretty, if you just go go to Atlanta, even Chicago, like my grandparents were in Chicago in Parkville. We used to sit on the porch and watch aircraft approaching in, and they have several different runways. And so you get, you throw in, thunderstorms or maybe just some sort of delay as far as weather goes, or even, you get every now and again you'll hear about. I think it was it was in Atlanta this summer. One of their um, one of the runways was closed because of a flat tire or something like that. I think, so kind of tech. So they had a complete runway that was shut down. So they had a lot more traffic going in these other ones. So that's, where you kind of get the congestion. But the controllers do a fantastic job of keeping that separation and not having any kind of midair collisions and things like that. So um, it might be a little bit different up in Alaska because there's a lot more general aviation, because that's pretty much how you get around in Alaska is fly. But I don't think it's that bad, But yeah, it's pretty cool. It's pretty cool stuff to see all that air traffic going in, and once you get the time to look, I think it might be unfortunately I'm flying out the Thursday before Thanksgiving, which is, I think, one of the busiest. Thursday night is your busiest night to fly in the whole NAS, no matter what time of year, just because I guess people are going somewhere for the weekend. But that Wednesday before Thanksgiving, just look on FlightAware. It's probably going to be significantly increase in air traffic. Airlines adding, flights and things like that. So.
Any other questions? No? I don't see any more questions, but thank you so much for having this chat with us.
Yeah, no
You're a
problem.
really great speaker. We're so glad that you could come and present. Thank you.
No, thanks for your time. I appreciate you guys. If you have any questions, just please email me, or if you want questions on the videos and whatnot. So,
Yes, thank you.
all right. Well, you guys have a good rest of your night.
Thank you, you as well. Can say, I don't know who's out there.
Is there anything else you guys need to discuss for this meeting, or am I good to end this Zoom?
I think that's all we had planned for today. So if you want to end it and save the recording.
Sounds good.
Thank you, Lauren.
Of course.